Okay, so imagine this for a second. You buy a video game item for the price of a McDonald's burger. Fast forward some years and your little innocent purchase is now worth 140 grand. This is exactly what happened to the owners of the 2014 Katowice Titan Hollow sticker. But could you pull off a legalized robbery like this today? Well, theoretically, this is still very possible. Let me explain. First things first, you have to understand why a sticker like the Titan Hollow could have a starting price of a couple dollars and somehow manage to reach the value that it holds today. For starters, CS2's major items, which are the major capsules and stickers, have a lot of exclusivity tied to them. Their supply is limited and it's cut off as soon as the major sale ends. This is why everybody goes mad in these last few years for the Austin Major, Paris Major, Stockholm Major, all of those CS2 majors and their stickers. Whenever they're removed from the CS2 main menu, they're completely cut off from production and their supply is now limited. Of course, nowadays investing in these items has become way more mainstream than it was back in 2014, and so that's why you have all of this attention on the subject and so many people talking about it. The second reason why an item like this, which originally cost a couple dollars, can go up to legalized bank robbery value is the fact that the CS2 market itself, back then CSGO, has been growing exponentially. New money has been coming into the market and items all around the board, including skins, knives, and all types of items, have been going up in price like crazy. Back in the day, you used to be able to buy a butterfly knife for the very low price of $200. Now, most good-looking butterfly knives are over $2,000. The game itself has simply become way more popular and mainstream, and a lot more players exist in the game that want to buy skins and own them, and they're actually willing to spend a lot of money to do that. Furthermore, a very big reason as to why people are willing to do that in the first place, that is, spend thousands of dollars on video game skins, is the rise of poor wealth, as some people call it in today's world. Examples of this is clothing with big brand logos going for huge prices, even though the quality of the product is equal to something that you could buy for $20 probably, and people end up spending more than $200 on a shirt just to have a Lacoste logo on it, which used to be very small in the old days and now it's huge. Another example of this culture is the rise of the Labubu dolls, which is the stupidest thing to go popular in my opinion in the last few years, but it's simply happening because everybody wants to show off perceived wealth, even if they happen to be broke. All of these things play a role in making our little video game sticker worth as much as a lightly used Lamborghini Huracan. So now you know how and why a CS2 skin can reach supercar prices, but how can we use this information to profit nowadays? Of course, the answer to this is investing in CS2 items. And in order to do that correctly, you have to make the right calls and invest in the right things at the right time. There's a lot of people out there nowadays who are into CS2 investing, and as this has become so mainstream, a lot of people fly into this as beginners, making all sorts of wrong calls because they simply don't understand some key elements of the CS2 market and its yearly patterns. I myself made a huge mistake investing in the RMR capsules when they were introduced because everybody and their mother was investing in those. Everybody in the community back then vouched for them and said it was a great idea to invest in them, as up until then, major investing had been extremely profitable. That was of course because of how low key it was and how few people actually invested in the previous majors. But at that point, with the RMR stickers and capsules, it had become so publicized and there were so many people investing in those stickers and capsules that the supply was simply way too much for them to go up in price in the long term. Furthermore, they were simply not good looking enough for people to want to use them in the game. And people wanting to use skins in the game of CS2 is what brings them the value in the first place. So with all of these things factored in, you can very easily come to the conclusion today that the RMR stickers were a terrible idea to invest in. But because of the hype and what everybody was saying back then, a lot of people, including myself, fell into the trap of investing in those. I'm of course really glad that I've come a long way since then. Another thing, however, you must keep in mind before flying into CS2 investing is that when you're investing in a CS2 skin, you're essentially trusting in the game of CS2 and its longevity. The popularity of the game itself and its existence in the first place is what will give your skins value. If something happens to this game in the future that is catastrophical enough, the skins community will completely collapse and the value of all of your skins will disappear overnight. Of course, today this looks extremely unlikely to happen, which is exactly why people still invest in skins nowadays and put so much trust in them. However, it's very important for you to understand this fact and know that no game, no business, pretty much nothing in existence lasts forever, which is why you should know that the value of your skins is heavily tied to the future of the game itself. So this is what we call CS2 investing, which is exactly what you need to utilize in order to profit from the game's ever-growing market. A huge warning, however, which I feel the need to give you is regarding the errors and mistakes that could render your investments completely useless. I touched on this briefly already in this video, but you should definitely stay away from overinvested and mainstream items. Overinvested items and skins and mainstream investments will have way lower returns in the long term than any other great investment in the game. The vast majority of skins and items that exist in the game's market makes it so that you have some great choices out there all of the time as a CS2 investor. And so you don't need to jump into the very public mainstream overinvested items as soon as they pop up. I'm telling you this so that you know not to fall into the fear of missing out next time something big happens in CS2 and everybody and their mother is telling you to invest in one specific item. Another dangerous situation which you should be able to spot and avoid when it happens is market manipulation in the CS2 market. A lot of items over the passing of time have been manipulated in CS2 by people which have their own reasons for doing this, and they could be anything from money laundering all the way to trying to make a buck off of the CS2 market by getting people to invest in an item, pumping its price up so they can now dump it. Just like a cryptocurrency pump and dump, because of the fact that the CS2 market is much smaller in comparison to something like big stocks in the stock market, small groups of people are able to buy huge percentages of the supply of items, raising the price by a stupid amount in a very short period of time, which brings in a lot of people who think they can make money off of this as they expect the price to keep going up. And this creates a snowball effect of people putting their money in those items, putting lots of money in, and then the people who hold the vast majority of the supply of the item itself end up dumping it and making a whole lot of money from it. This is exactly what happened to the Evil Geniuses holo sticker from the Stockholm Major. Very recently, this was manipulated by some Chinese investors for unknown reasons, probably just to make money off of the situation, which they probably did because a lot of people fell for this and made the mistake of buying this item because they thought it would keep going up, which is of course not going to be the case for this. So if you're careful enough to avoid making these mistakes, you can be on your way to becoming a successful CS2 investor. This is exactly how you can use CS2, a game that you're already passionate about, to make passive income and have your money work for you. I personally do my absolute best to keep everybody up to date with the greatest opportunities in the CS2 market as they arise. So if you're positive you want to get into this, I'm more than happy to welcome you on board.